But there are a lot of things that we don't have time for the day of because we are worrying about the logistics of the building and the vendors coming in.
Today, we're chatting with my good friend and former client, Lauren, who has been a professional event coordinator for 6 years over at the Haight in Elgin, Illinois. You may remember the Haight from the awesome video tour we did of their space with Lauren's colleague, Brett. If you haven't seen that yet, check out the video linked on the screen and you can see exactly what we're talking about. In today's video, we're going to discuss something that is really important for those of you who are planning a wedding to understand. What's the difference between a venue coordinator and a wedding coordinator or a wedding planner? Do you need both? If so, why? Let's dive in. So Lauren, thanks so much for being here today. I'm so excited to talk with you about this topic, which is something I regularly have to answer. Let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
So my name is Lauren and I am a event manager at the Haight in Elgin, and we help coordinate events for our clients, but we are strictly all things venue.
So that's a little bit different from what I do. For us, we call ourselves wedding planners, wedding coordinators. Sometimes people say they're a wedding designer, but essentially what we do is everything as it relates to the event with various spaces, setting up timing, logistics, helping people find vendors, a lot more broad than just a focus on the venue. Sometimes people also are confused about the difference between a planner and a coordinator. I would say typically there isn't much difference when it comes to the actual day of. They should both be doing the same thing to help you, but a planner is typically involved further in advance of the day of, and they're helping along the way, versus a coordinator who gets involved towards the end and is more focused on logistics. In terms of what you do versus what I do, we're going to dig more into the differences, but the big thing is you are focused on the venue, whereas we're focused on the whole event. All right, so I know another thing that comes up all the time is people asking you guys to do things as a venue coordinator that are really not your job. And sometimes they don't understand why they aren't your job or what you do and don't do. So touch on that a little bit. Help us understand what is not your job, and those things that you try to make clear from the start, you're like, no, that's not us. We don't do that.
The biggest thing is that we are the venue coordinator. So we stay at the venue. We don't go to any planning meetings that are off-site with any vendors that you may have. We don't look over any of those contracts that you may have with vendors. That's something that is deeper than what we can do or what we have time for. So if your ceremony is off-site, if you're doing photos off-site, if you're having a rehearsal off-site, we cannot help coordinate any of those items. We are bound to the venue the day of to make sure that things are happening the way that they should in that space.
That makes total sense. I think sometimes people hear the word coordinator and they connect that to how they've envisioned wedding coordination from other service providers. And so they just assume that you would do all those things as well. A lot of what you guys do as well involves receiving the vendors as they arrive, directing them to the right spaces within your venue and telling them, what they can and can't do, where to plug things in, a lot of the nitty gritty as it relates to the physical space. As a planner, while I would be happy to help with some of those things, it typically falls to someone in your role because you know the spaces.
Right.
You're going to know if a fuse blows, how to fix that. If I'm working at a venue as the planner, I'm coming in, and if something like that happens, I'm going to find Lauren and to say, okay, how do we fix this problem? Because it's not my job to know where the fuse box is and how to fix that. It's just my job to know who to talk to and how to fix that problem from a logistical standpoint. So I think that's really important, helping people understand the differences. For us, we have a short list of things that we don't do. And usually the best way I can describe it to people is that we don't do things that are clearly other vendors' jobs. If you rent an arch from a florist, part of that rental is supposed to involve setup and tear down of that item. So we're not gonna come in and set up your arch so that your florist can come put flowers on it. Other things like setting up your floral centerpieces, if you purchase them from a florist, it's their job to come and set them up. I've also had the occasional client ask me if I'll make announcements at their wedding. And I'm like, well, while I'm capable, really the person that's supposed to be directing guests on the mic is your DJ or MC or band leader, the person you hired to kind of be the forward-facing master of ceremonies for everything that's happening. So there are things that we don't do, but they really fall under, most of the time, the category of because it's someone else's job and we're not coming in trying to do someone else's job. we're coming in trying to make everything easier for everyone by doing the things that really aren't anyone's job and helping the whole schedule run smoothly. So even things like, while we can help put out cookie trays on a cookie table if you brought some baked goods that your family has made and got that pre-approved from your venue. Put some cookie trays on a dessert table, but we're not going to be baking the cookies and bringing them in and, doing all that because that's someone else's job. So another thing I think is different about your role versus mine is the timing of when we typically get involved. So on the venue side of things, as you're kind of firming up logistics and things like that, when do you feel like you really start to get involved?
We typically really get involved with a client 60 days prior to their event. They're assigned an event manager for their date and it's not changing after that time. We also send out a detail sheet. Clients are welcome to ask for it ahead of time, but we typically send it out at that time. Just kind of gives us some more information as far as who their vendors are, what they expect their timeline for the day to be, and if they don't have a planner or a coordinator, we will help coordinate their ceremony if it is on site. So we send that sheet out 60 days out, and then we meet with them 30 days prior to the event, and we'll kind of make all of those things concrete and have them ready to send out to their vendors.
That's a little bit different, I think, than a lot of people imagine, right? They have a lot of contact with the venue in the beginning during the booking process because they're learning how everything works, going over the contract, figuring out their logistics they talk to their venue a lot right at the beginning. And then a lot of people are surprised when then don't have contact with the venue for a long time while they're supposed to be really taking on the planning themselves or hiring a planner to help them the rest of the way. They're not really talking with you guys all the time. And I think some people think that they should be, I've had clients regularly be like, I haven't heard from my venue in a while. Should I check in with them? And I'm always like, no, it's okay.
We get those emails.
Yeah, they're doing other things, working with other clients, running other events. Now is not the time that you should be in touch with them. When we get closer, it'll be time. It is sometimes one of those things where I think people are surprised because they expect that initial level of support that they're getting from their venue in the booking stages to continue throughout the whole planning process. That's not how the process works. That's why you would have a planner.
Right.
To be involved with you from that point on and or pre-booking your venue to help you with everything you need to do in between there. And then for us, the other kind of difference is when we do coordination, which is for us a little bit different than planning, we also get more involved at that final, maybe 6 to 8 to 12 weeks out. That's when we're joining you for that final planning meeting and we're joining them as they firm up all their logistics. Before that, on our end, they can reach out to us with questions here and there, but we're not really going to be reaching out to them regularly or, having meetings because that's what planning is. So sometimes even just the nuances of venue coordinator versus wedding planner versus wedding coordinator are hard for people to understand. One thing that I think is kind of fun is you and I have a unique relationship in that I was your planner. So I just want to know from your perspective, as someone who works at a venue and also a former bride, why do you think it's important that someone needs not just a venue coordinator, but also a planner?
So they can relax.
Who doesn't want to do that on their wedding day?
It's true. You don't want to have to worry about any little thing on your wedding day. You want to be able to enjoy it, to be truly happy in the photos that you're taking, and just remember every moment. It helps that you have someone who has been with you from the beginning and knows what your vision for the day is and can help you complete that vision. As I said before, we can help with timeline, we can help with your ceremony coordination, but there are a lot of things that we don't have time for the day of because we are worrying about the logistics of the building and the vendors coming in. You have photos and you want to stay on track for those photos and you need a more detailed timeline, you want a planner for that. If you have a lot of personal decor that needs to be set up and put out, you want a planner or a coordinator for that. Whereas our rule of thumb as the venue coordinator is we can take an item out of a box and we can put it on a surface that is, our decor help for the day. That's what we have time to complete and can guarantee will happen. If you have smaller, more complicated things that complete your vision, it's best to have a planner, designer, coordinator there to help you get those things done. It just is so much more relaxing to have someone who can handle all of that stuff and knows what you want, instead of someone who you may have only met 30 days before the event in person and they've only had an hour-long meeting with you to talk about your vision for the day.
I feel like that makes total sense. I try to explain to people all the time because I want them to understand not so much that they need to choose me as their planner, although they obviously should.
I agree.
But just that you should have someone whose job it is to manage everything. And when you just go with your venue coordinator and rely on them to take on that role, it really is not their job, and it adds too much to their plate. In some cases, things might fall through the cracks, or just the nuances of why you did things aren't necessarily clear to them because they haven't made those planning decisions with you. They don't know why that one item is special and should go in a certain spot or what have you. I tell people all the time, you guys at the Haight are awesome, and if someone was dancing and their feet were hurting and asked if you would grab them their flat shoes, you're totally going to do that for them. It's not like you would say no, but at the same time, you're not usually standing watching the dancing happen, observing everything, making sure it's okay, because you've got other work to do at that time. Meanwhile, what we do is we're paying attention to our clients the whole time, and if I see a bride on a dance floor and she's looking like she's ready for her flat shoes, I just go get them and I bring them to her. So there is some level of sort of anticipating needs and paying attention to the couple as individuals, making sure they have what they need. I also try to help people understand it's really about focus, like what we're focusing on, whereas you guys are focusing on the space, the logistics, supporting the vendors, and we care about those things too, but we're also expanding beyond that and focusing on the people, the guests, the clients, the little tiny details that you guys just don't have time for. So knowing all of what we've discussed so far, and I feel like, you and I are really on the same page with this topic because we've had the pleasure of working together enough to know, what you do, what I do, how we, fit all that together. In your opinion, what is the most important thing people should expect from their venue coordinator?
I think it's most important to know that we are happy to help in all aspects, but we can only give basic help as far as that goes. If you need vendor recommendations, we're happy to do that. We have a list that we can give to all of our clients. We don't typically go outside of that list, or if you're looking for a specialized vendor that's not on that list, chances are we don't have one to recommend to you. As far as timeline goes, we will help with a basic timeline that we can send to all of your vendors. If you want there to be more details, if you want photo specific, that would be something that you want to reach out to a planner or a coordinator for. As we've already discussed, decor wise, you want a designer, you want a florist, you want a planner, because we will handle the basics. We will take your guest book out of a box and we will put it on a table. We will take your card box out of a box and put it on a table. We just want to make sure we have time to do everything that we have said, so we don't want to overstep what we can handle. If you need more support, then you need to reach out to the appropriate people, and for most people, that is a planner.
Even just the idea of one topic that's really important in wedding planning, which is vendor recommendations. You guys have a great list, obviously, because we're on it. So it's a great starting point, but it really is something that you pass along to them and you say, here you go, we like these people, good luck with your conversations with them. Whereas when we do vendor recommendations, we're going with our clients category by category, talking about what they need in that category, what they want to spend in that category, what their preferences are, likes, dislikes, all of that before we provide them with vendor recommendations that are customized to what their needs are. So it's just one example of you will get some good vendor recommendations from your venue most of the time, but they are not going to be tailored to your specific needs. And that's one thing, right? That's just vendor hiring. But when you look at the whole wedding planning process, you've got that basic level of solid support you're going to get from a good venue coordinator. But if you need more than that, if you want more than that, that is not their job. That is why you hire a planner, and that's what we do. So I think it's important for people to just understand that none of that is because the venue coordinators don't want to help you or don't wish that your wedding goes so perfectly for you, because they all do, but they just have a lot of responsibilities beyond that are behind the scenes that as clients or guests very rarely even aware of. You have no idea that they also have to make sure parking is going smoothly and that the security guards are supervised and that, your cards get put away at the right time, or any number of other things that are on your list that are not on mine. Making sure that if someone spills a drink, it gets mopped up up really quick. These are just things that are beyond what people realize.
Right.
You
They don't
guys
see it.
You guys have to do, because they just happen very smoothly. So there's not a lot of attention given to them. As planners, obviously there's so much more that we will do that is just a little bit different focus. So I think it's good that people understand that. Lauren, thank you so much for being here and chatting with me about what I think is a very important and helpful topic. If people want to learn more about where you work and come see that space, how can they learn more about the Haight?
They can visit thehaightelgin.com, or they can send us an email at info@thehaightelgin.com. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely, and we'll put all that information in the description below. So if you're in the middle of planning your wedding right now, click on the left right now and learn more about planning your timeline with our video that talks about the timeline planning mistakes you want to avoid.